And then I suppose
right.
we're probably in a pretty good position to admit, aren't we?
Yeah.
Are you there? So. Are you there, Jono? I'm going to mute Flem. Are you there, Jono?
Yeah. Do you want me to add everyone?
Can you add everybody and make sure they're all muted?
Okay. Shit. How do I mute all?
I think they will be automatically because they're not hosts.
Okay. Mute all. Admit all. Oh.
Well. Henry. Speaker. Gallery view. Look at all these beautiful faces. Hello, Hayden. Hello, Gordon. It's Jamo.
Hello, Margaret.
Hello, Jeremy.
Hello, Jonathan. G'day, Peter.
They keep coming through. All right. We've got, we're well into triple figures in the room tonight, so I'm sorry we can't say hello to everybody, but they're still coming in. There are more in the waiting room, Jono, if you want to usher them through.
I'm admitting as we go, so we'll just give it a couple of minutes before we start then, because people seem to be racing in quite quickly. In fact, I think there's a mechanism for me to close the waiting room that Peter showed me yesterday, so I might go and do that. One sec.
This is going to be an exciting show, which will be you watching us learn how to use Zoom live. We will be doing this for
Jono, I assume you're listening to me. I've just closed the waiting room, so anyone that hits the link now will automatically join. So you don't need to worry about it.
Lovely.
So that should be good as gold. So if you want, okay. So before we start properly, actually, where are you, Jono? There's Flem. There's Jono. Okay, we're all as we need to be. Jeffrey, do you want to do the honours, mate?
Let's do it.
I had to go about it, write it out and find it myself. And there's some stories I can tell you. I had to fail, had to fall just for what I did well. And there's some stories I can tell you. I had to go about.
Thank you.
This is the final word. It is. Well, thanks for joining the final word. Thanks for everyone for being here. Thanks for Jeff for botching my intro, just for something completely out of the ordinary. What a lovely thing to be able to do on a Thursday night or a Thursday morning, or depending on you're joining around the world. Jeff, the idea behind doing this live show and Zoom as it is was that a lot of people asked us whether we would do another live show in 2020. The plan was to do one in London. That's not going to happen now because you're not coming to the UK. So we thought the best option we have at our disposal is to do it by Zoom. And here's where we are. And we've got Damien Fleming for the fun.
And you know, who would have imagined that this was how we would have to do it? It's a strange place we find ourselves in the world. But I suppose for people who are normally on a podcast, this is quite a novelty that, you know, we'll get to see people's faces and they'll get to see our faces. We're actually people. We haven't been pretending this whole time. It hasn't been an elaborate catfishing scheme where we convince you that we're cricket writers just for some nefarious purpose.
No, that's right. So we're mindful that a few people who are with us here tonight don't know who we are. They've bought tickets via friends of theirs who've got them here, which is quite lovely. Well, perhaps a nice place for us to start, Jeff, would be, we're not standing with each other, but we do have the ability through Zoom to be with each other virtually as far as our background is concerned. And that does explain how we know each other as well.
And where would we choose, where would we rather be? If we could be anywhere in the world, if we could close our eyes and drift off, where would we rather be than here? Warnie's mural, Warnie's backyard, the dream barbecue. Here we are. Here's me with Muhammad Ali, Sharon Stone, one of the three women in this painting with about 24 blokes. I realized I knew a lot about this painting when someone asked me about it at the pub a few months ago when we could still go to pubs. And I was able to close my eyes and recreate the entire thing from memory. I could name every person in it, where they were, what they were doing, and who they were with. And then we checked and I was spot on. So that's when I knew I'd spent too much time looking at this particular picture. But now it's behind me. So
in 2000, I'm going to take mine off because evidently the artwork behind me is not going to quite marry up as well as I thought it might with this.
It looks so good.
Avant-garde versions of our let's go back to my mother-in-law's painting. This all started in 2015, the podcast, which is when Warnie's mural became part of our lives. The final test match of the 2015 Ashes series, when A Day in the Life of Shane Warne featured on Sky Cricket, and one of our patrons, who I think's here somewhere, Nick Tooby, found it on the television, and the rest is kind of history. But when we finally worked out who was who on there, which took us until early 2016, we were at the time, Jeff, doing White Line Wireless's coverage of the T20 World Cup, which basically amounted to you and I sitting on your sofa and recording games of cricket illegally off the television. And then on our wrap party at Moondog Brewery in Richmond, we spotted none other than Dimitri Mascarenas, who was sitting in the corner, who of course is in Warnie's mural just over the back playing poker. You can't quite spot him, but the former Hampshire all-rounder and England all-rounder is there playing poker in the mural. So it all
with
tied
the
in
Hudson
beautifully.
brothers, James
Aaron
Bond,
Hamill,
Sean Connery, Clint Eastwood, and Jason Warne.
Isn't Aaron Hamill in there as well playing poker? I seem to
Aaron Hamill's by the
former-
barbecue with the left-handed Elvis, and Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter cooking brains.
So that'll be your backdrop for the night. But yeah, so we've been doing this podcast for 8 seasons since the Ashes of 2015. It was a stop-start affair initially, Jeff. We did it for the ABC for nearly 2 years, and we found out one night rather abruptly that the head of sport didn't even know we existed. So that was a fairly straightforward way to realise that we should move to somewhere else. And we ended up finding our way to where we are today a couple of years ago, and we're much better for it. So that's the brief backstory on where we fit in. And as I say, you can probably hear in the background that these days I'm in London with my little baby, who'll join us in a sec once she's settled down a wee bit. And Jeff, you're in Melbourne, isolating with your family home in Eltham.
I'm with my own baby, which is the book that I'm trying to write. And much like other babies, it means that I don't get enough sleep. I'm worried all the time. And the worst possibility is that when it grows up, no one will like it. So yeah, we're very much of a mind at the moment.
I've got I'll bring her in for a quick look. Her mum just delivered her to me. She's wearing a cricket jumper, which was her first present. Was a beautiful embroidered jumper with her initials WMC, Winnie May Collins, in the corner there. So I know everyone likes a big fat baby, so here she is, 11 weeks old, already weighs about 11 stone. She'll be very happy with the. I love you very much. I'm going to give you back to Mum so we can do what we've got to do.
It's amazing. She's really reminiscent of Gus Fraser.
Right. So, Jeff, enough from us, I think, for the time being. What we should do, I think, is bring in our special guests for the evening. Everybody knows who Damien Fleming is, former Australian international, bowled in the green and gold between 1994 and 2001. He was then an acclaimed coach and eventually a very high-profile cricket commentator across the mediums, across the cricketing planet. He's none other than Damien Fleming. Welcome to the Final Word, Flem.
Colo, Jeff, thanks a lot. Wasn't doing much on a Thursday night anyway. And thanks to everyone that's joined for the book reading. And if everyone, I'd assume everyone's got the book. If you could just turn to page 149, please, everybody. My pre-ball routine. Win the ball. I felt this was a great phrase for keeping me in the present. And that's where I'm going to stay tonight, guys.
When
you got a nice round of muted applause on screen as you came on, so I like that. Thank you, everybody, for applauding. And there's some good stuff coming up in the chat box as well, so it's good to have people's commentary. Suggestions that Winnie and Stewie Dew might have a bit in common coming through from
that's hopefully not too much in common. Flem, it's an opportune time to grab you on the line. I was having a look yesterday, just doing a wee bit of research. Not that I don't know your career back to front, but you had a big birthday last week. You turned 50.
50 years of age. Yeah, raised the bat. Had some plans that obviously went out the door with the current climate that we all live in here, but had a fantastic day with the kids. Had 3 separate kicks of the footy, the Aussie rules footy, with Braden, who's 18, Jasmine, who's 15, and little Isabel, that's 8. Good meal. And then it wasn't Netflix. I had a family movie. I put them all down and we all had to watch Dumb Dumber.
I was going to say it'll be Dumb and Dumber or the brief clip if you've got a 1994 hat trick, which we'll come to in a bit. A bit of grainy footage should exist of that. Let's go. The way we normally do these interviews is that we go back to the start of your cricketing life, and this is the story we'll tell today. Your life in cricket, and it starts in my part of the world in southeast Melbourne, where you played for two very famous clubs, both the Bloods, Springvale South and then subsequently South Melbourne. But Springvale South, I mean, again, famous club in the Dandenong District Cricket Association. What are your first memories of running around playing there?
Yeah, it is, Colo, and it's one of the things that makes me feel great that I actually, my two senior teams in Melbourne were both the Bloods, you know, red and white, had both the same song. I mean, I played 1 year for Noble Park in the sub-district where I played footy. But for Springy South, they've got a club legend who just retired at 45, 46 years of age, Craig Slocum. He lived over the road from me in Athol Road, Springvale South. So we were the classy end of Springvale. We weren't in Springvale, we were Springvale South. And it was his brother Darren that actually didn't want to go down the cricket club by himself. So he sort of dragged me there. Turned up home late. Mum wasn't happy, so that was the end of cricket. And then obviously I crept down a few weeks later, and I couldn't ask for a better junior club, really. And even to this day, as you'd know, Colo, they're a very strong, successful team. Warren Ayres was probably the most famous name when I was growing up, you know, who was a legend of Melbourne district cricket and a fine player for Victoria. So, you know, I was always chasing Ayresy. And I remember at our under-16 presentation, Ayresy gave out the trophies. And then the next year I'm bowling to it. South Melbourne versus Melbourne, but you know, and a lot of the coaches were dads. That's the way we were taught. You know, and I've coached myself, my kids' teams as well, and really, I think it was what I think about Springvale South. It was about culture. You know, I don't remember teaching me a lot of skills, but it was you know, you had to be on time, you had to be respectful, you had to work hard. And I think those attributes, you know, obviously suited me and everyone from Springvale South on. They had their, was it their 50th year anniversary at the start of last year and turned up. And you can tell the great clubs, ladies and gentlemen, that I still knew, I reckon, 40% of the people there. So,
yeah, I mean,
so I've just had a WhatsApp from Dizzy there. Diz, you obviously haven't joined this chat.
Diz was our last, the previous live show we did in Adelaide back in, when was it, Jeff? November or December or whatever it was. Yeah. Dizzy was our guest there, so he's been through this before. So you can tell him all about that later.
I have a question that I need to put forward. If you played for two teams called the Bloods, why did you not go for South Melbourne / Sydney and instead barrack for Hawthorn?
Because they're the greatest football team in the world, Jeff. Greatest football team. Yeah, back to that. My mum and dad weren't passionate AFL fans, you know, VFL back then. You know, my dad followed the Bulldogs, mum Carlton, but it was my grandmother's and grandmother and nanny who just loved AFL. So Grandma Fleming was Footscray and Grandma Stewart was Carlton. So I had uniforms for both. But you know what I reckon happened? My best mate at school, barracked for Hawthorn. His older brothers who I revered, barracked for Hawthorn, and they were going well. Geez, I'm bloody happy with that decision.
Yeah. No,
very happy. There's plenty of these to get through in isolation, everybody. I'm only halfway through.
And 11 of them are on colour television, Flem. I like to remind people 11 of our premierships are on colour TV. All 13 are on television too. No other club can say that. I feel for Carlton.
Sorry, Carl. That's what I say to Ponting when he starts to talk up a little bit, and I go, mate, at least our last premiership wasn't on VHS. We're on Blu-ray. You're streaming ours.
Flem, you go from the most successful club in Dandenong, Springvale South. I think it's fair to say they're the most successful club in the DDCA over the journey, to the most acclaimed club in district cricket. And by that, I mean, I think, would I be right in saying, Flem, that there's been more test cricketers out of South Melbourne than any great club in Victoria?
I don't know about test cricketers, but test captains, certainly.
Test captains, right. Yeah. So It's a very famous club, steeped in history, and you walk in the door there and, I mean, give us a feel for the sort of characters, past and present, Australian and Victorian players that are there when you walk through the doors at what, age 15? Was it age 16?
So it was, 15 years of age. I was at Springvale South, and I just happened to play in a local a schoolboys under 16 tournament. Lucky enough, a mate told me the trainings were on a WAG school. I wasn't too good at school. Got picked, and the Dowling Shield was only 2 weeks away. And luckily enough, the captain of this schoolboys was captain of South Melbourne. He said, "Mate, you've got to come down here." And I just thought it was too late. So it was Springvale South, mate of mine, Darren Spreckley. We just thought we'd go to the 4 clubs in our area. So because we were Springvale, but our clubs in our zone, like AFL, were actually South Melbourne, Richmond, St Kilda and Melbourne. So, we had to get the train in there. And turned up, and the coach was Mr. Lee Baker Senior. Lee Baker as junior has played the most games and taken the most wickets for South Melbourne. And his dad was the coach. Rock up, he was a bit grumpy. Why are you guys turning up so late? Virtually picked the team and had a bat and didn't bowl. And then the captain turned up, David Chinkfield. He said, "You had a bowl yet?" I said, "No." Grabbed the ball, bowled a few balls, and Mr. Baker walked over and he said, "Are you coming Thursday night?" And I said, No, I'm going to go to Melbourne Thursday night. And he goes, "If you turn up Thursday night, you're playing." and they moved quickly. I played in the thirds that Saturday, so that qualified me. And the main thing I remember about the Dowling was we were a terrible team, and the eventual winner, Melbourne, who were as usual very arrogant, and remember batting and getting a few runs, and they go, "No, they're going to need 250," and we knocked them over cheaply and won by about 150 runs. Craig O'Brien played for Melbourne, who later played for St Kilda and the Swans. He was a really good player. But also Scott Metcalf, Ian Metcalf's son Scott played in there. So Ian used to come down and start to do some coaching. So, with that sort of interest, I was always going to play at South Melbourne. They wanted to play me in the twos for the rest of the year, but I was captaining the under 16s, and our turf one, I think we're in the finals at Springy South, so I wanted to finish the year with them.
I love that. That's old school. I want to finish the season playing turf one in BDCO instead of playing for South Melbourne. It's great. Go on, Jeff. Sorry, mate.
What's the path from there to you debut for Victoria very young, 1989? You take 6 for at the Junction Oval on debut. Was it a surprise to end up playing state cricket so quickly?
Well, of course it was, Jeff. I went from, the first year at South Melbourne, under 17s. I did my shoulder. I was playing indoor cricket. I used to play a lot of that. And that was signs of chronic shoulder injuries for the rest of my career. So I missed virtually the whole year. And then I was playing as a batsman in the thirds for South and getting a few runs. And then one day I just bowled in my rubbers, got a couple of wickets. They're on the bottom, South Melbourne. So they put me straight in the ones. They had nothing to lose, really. And it was a infamous game. We played Melbourne, who were on top. So already I didn't like Melbourne from the Dowling Shield. And they smashed 280. And Wayne Phillips, who's probably one of the most underrated state players that I've played with, he epitomised toughness and technique and getting the most out of him. And our biggest character, and the guy that used to drive me to training, was Aussie Wright. And we're about 1 for 180. And a guy called Sammy Broad bowled the last ball before tea. And he used to run in off no run up. And then Aussie wasn't looking and the ball bowled him. And they said, "Oh, well, you're going to change the decision." And the Melbourne captain said no. And we took tea. So first tee, 16 years of age, and it was going to be a blue. So they're holding back Phil Kingston, our keeper, and they're all going, I'm thinking, how good's this district cricket going there? And then we finished bottom, but then Graham Yallop come back from the Rebel Tour. And as captain coach, they must have turned over half the team and the whole squad at South Melbourne. And we had some great recruits. I mean, obviously Yallop was the best of them, but Jeff Van Voot and John Mark and those sort of guys. And we played in the final that year at 17. So it was really cool. In the semi, we beat Melbourne, you beauty. And I remember I got out Dean Jones. So Monday at school, bit of a hero at school getting out Dino. And I ended up taking the most wickets that year at 17. So I wasn't totally surprised I got put in the squad. And yeah, it was funny. Just wickets just kept going, consistent wickets. Went to the under-19s for Victoria, and took 20 odd wickets in that tournament. And then I think I got picked later that week. So it was a bit of a whirlwind from having the shoulder injury and missing a whole year to probably 18 months later playing for Victoria. So it was pretty surreal, to be honest.
Yeah, and those shoulder injuries become a bit of a fixture later. I mean, that classical sort of through the window, side-on action and all the rest of it. But before we get to those becoming a more consistent bugbear of yours, that Victorian team you played in the early 90s, it's a pretty useful team. I mean, obviously punctuated by the Shield victory in 1991. But you look at the fast bowling stocks, yourself and Merv, Paul Rifle, Tony Doddermaid's, not long out of the Australian setup. A young James Sutherland as well. Of course, people often forget that the future, then the future chief executive of Cricket Australia was in that group. But I mean, especially with Merv though, you and he were very close mates. Indeed, you were roommates.
Yes, we were. But back to that fast bowling stuff, Dennis Hickey, Richard McCarthy was probably, the guy that was rated highest in district cricket. He probably struggled with 3 or 4 day cricket. But rooming with Merv, if we do want to actually go to chapter 5, rooming with Merv, nothing prepares you for rooming with Merv Hughes. Nothing in my previous 18 years. So we get picked. I've got a mullet halfway down my back. Merv's just taken his 13 wickets and a hat-trick against West Indies. So besides Alan Border, he's probably the most famous cricketer in Australia. And so we get there, we're going in the lift, and Tony Doddermaid and Michael DiMartino is the keeper. They're sort of saying, good luck when you get up there and all that. And I'm going, what the friggin' hell is waiting for me up there? Walk in, and he goes, do you want the double or the single? And I said, I'll take the single. And he goes, shit, you're good to room with. And he didn't say anything for about 10 minutes. And then he just looked over and smiled. He goes, you're going to be all right there, mate. So I don't know what I did wrong, though. I roomed with him for 6 years. 6 years. And they changed us once, and we lost a one-dayer. So then we went back together. And, we just knew each other's routine so well. And, we didn't need an alarm clock. I won't tell you what it was, but it was smelly, and it was set for about 15 minutes before we had to leave for the ground. But I love him like an older brother that I haven't had, Big Merv. Learned so much off him.
We got that impression in Birmingham last year during the World Cup. We went with you and met up with Merv, and I was trying to take a few months off the piss. I hadn't been drinking. And Merv Hughes turned around and said, here's a beer. And I was like, well, I guess I'm drinking this because I'm not going to say no to Merv Hughes.
But Jeff, how quickly does he drink those pints? They're like thimbles to him, isn't it?
It was very much holding court. He's sort of sitting at the bar with, with people coming up to pay their respects. But yeah, it was nice to see that relationship between you two is obviously very, very comfortable, and immediately slotted straight back in.
Well, better than poor Scotty, his son that was playing league cricket, who travelled all day by the train. As soon as he walked into the pub, no, g'day, son. He goes, you're shout shit face, get up there.
It was a real exercising, a real contrast talking to the two of them, Merv compared to his son, who's not the same, obviously a very good cricketer, but not the same in terms of, I think he's studying arts or something at university. He's got a different bent in terms of the way he's seeing the world compared to Merv a little bit.
Yeah, that'd be his mum, Sue, wouldn't it? Lovely person, smart and articulate, and got stuck with Merv. I think they met at the Castle, which was a Sunday night session in the late 80s there. And because I was rooming with him, I was through the whole process of that. Merv was single when I first started rooming with him, and then he met Sue, and things just changed. But it's really interesting. Like, Merv was such a totally different bowler than myself, wasn't he? I mean, he worked on intimidation. He was fast. He was bouncy. He bowled probably 80%. His stock ball was a bouncer, wasn't it? That was basically it. But his great ball, because he angled the ball in, was the one that hit the seam and got the outside edge, whereas I bowled fuller and swung the ball out. But I think that really worked well. And it wasn't unlike bowling with Glenn McGrath later on, where all three of us were pretty accurate type fast bowlers, but with Glenn and Merv, bowling short of a length, so sort of slightly pushing the batsman back and, playing backward defences mainly. I think that, and then I was bringing them forward, trying to test their forward defence. I really think it helped us out as a bowling unit.
In terms of that Shield team that goes on to win the comp in 91, that's when you first start getting talked up for higher honours because you do well in the final, take 4 wickets, including Michael Bevan, I should add, in that first innings when you go through them in the first innings. But it takes a couple of years. You end up taking a big bag to end the 93 season and end up in the one-day team in early 94. You make your debut against South Africa at the Wacker. And Alan Board is your captain. I think sometimes it's kind of lost in your story that people think of you as Mark Taylor's asset, or maybe later on Steve Waugh's, especially when you think about the '99 World Cup. But there's the Alan Border era for you as well. What was it like walking into the Australian dressing room and a bloke who you surely would have been, idolising through your childhood? He's now your skipper for Australia.
Yeah, once again, it's really surreal. Just going back a little bit, that year we won the Shield, 1991. I took a lot of wickets early, and there was an upcoming West Indies tour, 91, and we'd had a youth tour to the West Indies in September, October, and that was the first time we'd seen the great Shane Warne, who obviously wasn't as great then, but he was a great character already at 19, 20. He spun the ball a lot, but didn't have the control and all that. But I had a successful youth tour. And then there's word that I'm going to get picked for this 91 West Indies tour. And in the end, I think it was Mike Whitney in and me out. I must admit, at 20 years of age, I absolutely crapped myself at the thought of going over there bowling to Viv Richards, Spacey Marshall and Ambrose. And my performance has tailed off a little bit. So it took a couple of years of that hedging and finding your career. Obviously, there was always pressure on for spots, but to finally get picked on the back of a Lancashire League season, which really helped all three forms of the game. And it was, I think, wickets and runs against South Africa. I don't reckon AB captained my first game. I think he was injured and Ian Healy was injured. So I think Tubby captained and Tim Zura was the keeper.
Yeah. I remember when he made his brief comeback in that series, of course. And then Australia. It's kind of when I think of that one-day series, what really stands out to me is a game that you played in and did well in, your second one-dayer at the MCG, which was against New Zealand. So in January, we're still in January 94 here. But Dino top scores, 82, Victoria's favourite son. Warney takes 4 for, Paul Rifle takes 3 for, and you take 2 for 15 off 9. Had a very, very tidy day with the ball. And it's just, the G was absolutely heaving. I reckon there must have been 65, 70,000 people. They were right in that era when people were really showing up for those day-nighters at the MCG. And it was a huge Victorian day, and you were the new boy. It must have been pretty cool having the Southern Stand going wild for you, which is where I was that night.
Oh, it was just amazing. Just that roar every time you're announced you're going to have a bowl or Warney or pistol, or when Dino fielded the ball. And I had a shocker in my first game, bowled at the wrong end, used new boots, just did everything against the normal routine. So I thought, wow, this is my last chance. I've got to make the most of it. So, doing well myself, the other Victorian boys, smashing them. And then probably, Warney was at his peak at that stage, wasn't he? He was all over them. So big win, big celebrations. I only come in because Craig McDermott was injured. So that was it for me for the Australian at that stage. And I wasn't sure when I was ever going to get picked again. But if that was at my only game, 2 games and last game, to play in front of 70,000 people at the G was just amazing.
And that's, you do quite an extensive apprenticeship in one-day cricket. You play ODIs in 4 different countries before you get to make your Test debut at last in 1994.
Yeah, and I've got a feeling I got picked for that 94 Sri Lanka and Pakistan tour really as someone, you know, who's going to progress as a swing bowler, but was mainly just going to play the one days. So it was only injuries that gave me the opportunity to make my Test match debut at Rawalpindi of all places. So, you know, McGrath tore his quad.
Fast bowling paradise.
Well, that was the thing about Pakistan. They had the flattest pitches going around, you know, and just, there's times, I mean, on the 98 tour, they had an amazing bowling lineup, but we won the first test and then they made two flatties. It was amazing. But certainly you've got to make your opportunities. And it was funny, we had a net session the day before and I knocked over Bernie and Slats a couple of times and I did feel ready. And but it's not until you actually get that baggy green, which is sitting in your kit, but you don't want to wear it until you've actually played. To get on your head, you know, was, you know, not closure, but, you know, you talked about the Springy South days. Your dream is to play for Australia. You don't think you're ever going to get there, and you're there.
It's a really interesting sort of ramp up. So those 4 countries that you're playing, it includes the one day, you play a game in South Africa in that crazy one-day series in '94, which is kind of like the mini World Cup at the time. It was South Africa, you know, by far at that point, right at that point in time, the best one-day team in the world. Australia, obviously, hadn't been there for 23 years at that stage, and you're there for that. But when you go to Pakistan and you get that opportunity, it's a pretty crazy series as well. Famously at Karachi, the 4 byes and Australia lose by a wicket rather. You don't play that game. You're brought in for the second Test match at Rawalpindi in a revamped bowling lineup. The extra seamer they go for there, and Australia go on and make a shitload, 520 in the first dig. You bowl out Pakistan for 260 odd. You got them following on. And you know, even though you've done well in the first innings and taken 4 wickets, actually, quiz question: who's your first Test wicket?
Is that Amir Sahal?
He was your second. Fahid Zazal. You picked up him first, and now Amir Sahal was the second one. So
yeah,
you know,
I don't think he played a lot, did he, Fahir or whatever?
No, that doesn't ring many bells. But you know, you've got him following on, and I think most people know about your debut and they know your story because you told it. I want you to tell it again now, but you tell it so well. But I don't know whether people realise necessarily that when you look at the scorecard, you probably think, oh, he took a hat trick when they bowled him out for 260 in the first dig. It wasn't quite that straightforward though. It was a bit different, the circumstance of the game when you pick up 3 in a row.
No, it wasn't. But the first innings was significant. Once we declared and we went out to bowl, you bowled to Sayed Anwar and Amir Sahal. And Sahal was a very good player. Anwar is probably the 4th best bat that I bowled to. If it's Tendulkar, Lara and Ponting in their little mirror, Anwar was next. I thought he was a brilliant player. Really scored quickly, good defence, great attacking shots. I reckon I went for 20 in my first 4 overs, which these days doesn't sound too much. But in Test cricket then, I was just going, God, this is like a one-day game. But Bob Simpson was a really good coach. You know, he just sat me down and just said, mate, you actually landed well. They played some really good shots. This is what we want. You need to bowl full and you need to swing it. So, you know, Simo was an interesting one. Back then, you know, they like their stereotyped cricketers. You know, they loved Tim May as the second off-spin option. Simo always wanted an outswing bowler in the squad. You might not play, but after Alderman, you definitely wanted an outswing bowler there. So that gave me a lot of confidence. And then to get 4 wickets with McDermott. But the last day, it was just a nightmare. Salam Malik, I mean, Tubby still apologised. I think he dropped him when he was about 20 off me. And then, mate, he was batting on a different plane. I mean, he played Warney in particular so well. He'd just go back in his crease. So I was just sort of waiting for it to peter out, really, when Tubby gives me the call to have a bowl. And I don't even know what I'm thinking in hindsight. And so I just bowl a crap half volley that a guy called Amir Malik hits through the leg side. And I don't know what was more surprising, me taking the wicket for a half volley or Michael Bevan actually catching the ball, because he was a horrible... Everyone thinks he's a great fielder because he was fast, he got to the ball, but he used to wind up with the arm and he couldn't catch, Bevo. And then who comes out next? You know, the slowest walker out to the middle of Test cricket. You know, I often joke he was clean shaven when he entered the arena, and he had a Max Gorn beard by the time he took centre. It's Big Incy. What a great player. What a great man, Incy. So he was a beautiful player, Incy, but not a great starter. And I tried a Yorker first ball, dead in front, neutral umpire, puts it up, and we're on a hat trick. We take a drinks break, which probably goes for 20 minutes. And we're talking about how I get to bowl to Rashid Latif, the wicketkeeper, and not Salam Malik. You know, I'm not going to get him. And then Big Joe Angel, the giant-hearted, heavy metal freak, bowled beautifully. And then he just bowled on the stumps, and Salam Malik hit it down to me for 1 to go to 237, not out. And so Tubby goes, what do you want? I said, let's get a few slips in gullies. Let's jazz it up a little bit. And then before I bowled the ball, I mean, it sounds corny now. I turned to Craig McDermott and said, Billy, Salam doesn't know it yet, but he's going to become part of history here. And I don't know why I said it, and just bowled this ball. And it actually was a pretty good ball. And Eos took the catch, and then it was nuts. You know, Joey and Billy have got me in the air, and we're having fun. And you know, it was an amazing, what would have been an amazing closure to your first Test match, you know, having not won it and got to sing the song. But then the worst story, as I don't know if you're going to lead to it, but when you hit the highs, how quickly you get hit by the crushing lows. And when Mark Bloody Taylor grabs the ball himself, who's got the worst bowling action I've seen in any form of cricket, bowls a ball, I swear it bounced 3 times. Rashid Latif lobs it to Bevo. Bevo had the chance to drop it, catches it. Tubby takes himself off, so he's got 1 for 4. Then he gives the ball to Slats. Then Slater gets it. Slater's nuts. You know, he doesn't even know where they're going. So everyone suggests what was going on out there. And in hindsight, I'm not sure.
It's the perhaps the
figures of it.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess less so the Taylor and Slater bowling. I mean, 2 things that stand out for me. One is that it's the last series not televised back to Australia. So I mean, as a kid growing up, we heard this hat trick on the radio on the ABC, but I don't even think many of us did that, because from memory, I don't even think it was all coming back live. So we heard about it on the news. You know what I mean? And we saw a little bit of grainy footage maybe a week later. But if it were any other series, you would have had, you know, it'd be replayed time and time again, and the commentary like Peter Siddles and all the rest of it. But poor old Flem, yours is sort of not lost to history, but had it been the next series Australia played or any other subsequent series, it'd be a far more it'd be more replayed, I suppose.
Well, Foxtel did the West Indies tour. That was in '95.
That's right.
That was the first one. I did have a Channel 9 executive come up to me in the summer, and he goes, mate, we tried to buy it and the price just went insane. So you talk about grainy footage. There was no grainy footage. So the first time I saw it was a couple of years later. It turned on, you know, the English VHSs they used to do a summary of the game.
Yep.
What were they called? I can't remember. So because I played league cricket in England, one of my league mates had found it, and he sent it over. So it took about a year to actually see that footage. But yeah, for me, yeah, you don't go into a game wanting, get a hat trick, and obviously I build up the story a little bit. But what meant to me was the bag of green, getting 4 wickets in the first innings showed that, you know, my best balls could get, wickets at Test level. And I wanted to sing that song. I wanted to sing Underneath Southern Cross I Stand in a Test win.
So you missed the next one with injury. The next time you suit up in a Test, it's like with your one day as your second match is at the MCG. You're at a Boxing Day Test, and you know, no pressure, no stress. Just roll out and see how you do in front of that crowd again for a Test match this time.
Yeah, Jeff, it's an interesting one. I played 3 Boxing Day Test matches, and my bowling in the first innings in all 3 was average. And You know, I've got a podcast with Bradley Hodge, who's a great character, and you know, he talks about his one Boxing Day, you know, coming off that 200 against South Africa. He reckons, you know, everyone asking for tickets and you're trying to get everything sorted, and he reckons from the time the wicket fell, that the next thing he remembered was the ball hitting his bat. And for me, that was a bit like the, you know, what I felt in the first innings of those 3 Boxing Days. And also, I think in all 3 of those, I was the only other Victorian besides Warnie. So the media had done Warnie to death. So, you know, you were the Victorian with the story. And but it was amazing. You know, we played the day before Christmas Day, 94, 95, but I'm not sure if that's happened ever before. So day 2 was Boxing Day. And I remember walking out to bat. It was just massive roar. It was a magic feeling. To be walking out at number 11, to be fair, boys, took a bit of the gloss off. But Glenn McGrath wasn't playing, so someone had the bat at number 11. Pigeon was 12th man. And me and Steve will put on about 40. You know, it was just, it was amazing. But once again, I think I tried too hard with the ball. And then in the second innings, you know, it settled down significantly, really.
Yeah, that second innings, we've talked about it before, but the end of the 4th day, it's the first time I went to the G for a test match, actually. And Booney made his 20th century earlier in the afternoon. England had been driven into the ground, and you go out and pick up Gooch and Hick in the space of 10 minutes. The delivery to Hicks, you know, perhaps one of the best you ever bowled for Australia, classical outswinger and all the rest of it. So even though it didn't quite play out the way you wanted to in the first innings, you, again, sort of showed on the big stage your best ball was good enough.
Yeah, and I just remember Booney's 100 too. You know, it was an absolute cracker. So the game was still alive. Late day 4, and I just wanted to relax, and it was really interesting that summer. And I tweeted a couple of weeks ago. You know, I don't know whether red cookers are like red wines, whether they have good years, because those 94, 95 cookers were insane. They were absolutely beautiful. And, they swung even more in the Sydney test. You know, Craig McDermott and myself swung it a lot on day 1 there. But, yeah, it was really significant, you know, to get the test was alive, and we needed wickets, obviously, to cut England out. But, you know, Gucci's was an interesting one. He nearly hit one to Booney first ball. So the next ball, I think he felt like he needed to play and edge it. And then with Graham Hick, he sort of squared up the first ball, and I decided to go a bit wider the crease to hopefully open him up a little bit.
No.
And it seemed to work.
Not too bad. Not too bad.
Just go with it, Flem.
I don't know what we've got.
I'm going to unmute you, Flem.
Here.
That's all right,
But
mate. You're back on, just you.
Yeah, so the next day, I'm just visualising Pfeiffer, and we're going to sing the song. And then Tubby gives the ball to McDermott and Warne, and they just run through them. And that was the funny thing about that series. After your first spell, it was really hard to get a bowl, because McDermott's Ashes was insane. You know, fast outswingers, off-cutters, bouncers. Warnie's bowling as well as he'd ever bowled. So, you need to get 1 or 2 with the new ball, because you weren't going to bowl to the tail. And then Warnie gets on a hat trick, and of course he's going to get the hat trick. But God, it made me
you're
laugh.
involved. You're involved in that, aren't you? Well, that hat trick, before you get to him bowling the ball. I mean, you're kind of involved in that, because on the television coverage, it's like, well, you know, in your first test match, so, you know, in your first 2 test matches, Victorian hat tricks, but you're the bloke who is talking to him at mid-off, and, you know, they talk about your performance again. But what did you say to Shane at the top of his mark before he went on to bowl the fateful delivery to Devon Malcolm?
Well, I had to settle him down, because he's on the hat trick, and it always bemused me. The batsman would go nuts suggesting different deliveries. So Tubby, who I said can't bowl, he's going bowl the flipper, and Booney's going wrong end, and I'm going, geez, how many? I mean, it's Devon Malcolm. He's legally blind. You can underarm a basketball. He ain't going to hit it. You know what I mean? So we're walking back, and I can see Warnie's a bit like that, and you know, half jokingly, I did go up to him and say, "Hey, Warnie, do you really want to know how to get a Test hat trick? Because I've already got one, eh?" And I did seriously say though, I thought about bowling a different delivery to Malik, but you got to go with your stock ball, your outswinger, and Warnie did. But I don't know if you remember Booney's catch. He's got the 100th day before, 34th birthday. And then we're in singing the song, guys. And for all the build-up, it lived up to it. It was a blockbuster, and Booney's up there, singing and building it up and, singing songs and chatting it. Once again, it's one of those things, if you don't play again, what a great moment it was. And then also, even though it was only a couple of wickets, you got a feeling that, I'm probably going to keep playing. We're 2-0 up in this series. I'm going to be part of an Ashes winning series as well.
Yeah. Then you've got the disappointment, as you say, you're riding the highs and lows, where you get onto the 95 West Indies tour, that famous Australian tour. You play the first one day and then you break down, your shoulder goes, that as is going to keep happening for you.
Yeah, it was. The boys said the morale really lifted once I'd gone in 95. So that was a real point there. But for me, I had a couple of hamstring injuries, just to chuck that in with the shoulders. So I missed the Perth Test match. Did a bit of a fitness test, just locally, really. But once again, I think Simo was really keen to have an outswinger, particularly over in the West Indies. So my feedback was McDermott and I were going to open the bowling in the Test matches. So really, I just needed to get my fitness through the one days there, and then I had that feeling again, same as Pakistan, where the shoulder. It's interesting. I read an article on Jai Richardson, even though he dislocated his shoulder fielding. Mine would slightly dislocate while I was bowling, and I felt it fall out just in the second last ball of my first spell, and then I was running in for the second spell. First ball 4, second ball lobbed it up, and then I remember running in, and a voice in my head said, "You're not really going to bowl this ball, are you?" And walked off and knew that was it, and I was going to need a total reconstruction. But what I did enjoy was back then, the West Indies Test matches come in at such a great time when you were young and you're out in the pubs and the nightclubs, weren't you? So, but basically, I'll be watching the boys at the tunnel Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night to cheer them on, and drink cards, more importantly.
So you don't play a Test match between early 95 and October 98. It's a really long time out of the Test team due to the various injuries, and poorly timed injuries, really. But that's where your one-day career truly takes off. I find it fascinating going back through your career analysis that you get brought back in for your first game for Australia after that layoff. It isn't just sort of some bilateral game. It's the World Cup against India at Mumbai. That's your next start. And of course, famously, you go on to bowl India out, take 5 for 36. It's one of your sort of 3 World Cup moments at the death when you were able to win games for Australia in miraculous circumstances. Really, India were cruising at one stage in that chase with Sachin and so on, and we'll come to Sachin again in a minute, I'm sure. But then there's the India game initially. You come straight back in, and of course that sets you up for the semi-final in Mohali when you've got not many runs to play with, and Richie Richardson's out there, and it's a kind of a miraculous Australian victory alongside yourself and Shane Warne.
No, it was a fantastic tournament, really, until the final for us. And I was lucky in some regards. Once again, I got a feeling. I was getting feedback that they were going to take me to the World Cup, even though I was struggling a bit, just getting used to like a real new shoulder, really, because it got stabilised so much. And really, I wasn't in the first team. And then Craig McDermott got injured, that opened up that opportunity, and it was a great night for swing. The Mumbai crowd at Wankhede Stadium, it's like a Metallica mosh pit. It was just insane. Sachin batted unbelievably. So we got through that, and then Mark Waugh was batting, on a different planet, really. He was getting hundreds every game, and then then we get to the semi, and then I think we're 4 for 17. We're cooked. And then Stewie Law and Michael Bevan, and then Heels at the end just gave us a sniff. And they get off to a flyer. And then, you know, a couple of things. I remember Steve Waugh bowling an unbelievable ball from around the wicket to knock over Lara. I think Richie Rich pulled one into the square leg umpire. Would have been 4, cut to 2. Then McGrath and Warren just you know, strangled the West Indies, and then I had the bowl at the end, you know, and I think Arthurton had got 2 runs in 5 innings, and then that last over where Richie Rich was just belting him everywhere. He's with Ambrose, and Tubby just says, "Mate, you just got to get it right in the block hole." And the hard thing is, you know, Richie Rich and then De Silva in the final. They're both guys that like to go back and like to play the pull shot to short of a length balls. They could actually even pull deliveries that were even fuller than that. And I didn't quite get it right, but Richie Rich, he absolutely smashed it for 4. Then I went a wide Yorker, which he missed, and then Ambrose calls him through. Unbelievable. And then just little 1%ers, and this is why Ian Healy was a legend. You know, he's a real leader in our team. Great skills, you know, school teacher, background. So, you know, he was a really important member of our team. We used to bowl out in the middle, and then he'd take everyone every now and again and underarm stumps, you know, to practice that. And he'd hit the stumps, and you'd walk up going, "Can you just throw it back to me?" Well, what he was practicing was for this moment. And Ambrose comes through, Heels takes it, hits the stumps. Kirtley's going, "I'm home," and he missed out by about that much, I reckon. And then Courtney Walsh comes out, and our gut feel was, you know, he's going to get bat on ball or try and, you know, get bat and pad close together to get Richie on strike. Now he tries to hit me to Mars, and I think it's the fastest ball I've ever bowled. And then, as Steve Waugh said, I think in the diary or whatever, I was like a looter at a riot. I just went insane. I had to run the Heels, and there's teammates flying here and all that sort of stuff. And I remember hugging Heels and hugging Tubby, and then I remember hugging Shane Lee. So good pace from Shane Lee. He wasn't even playing. He was the third guy into the middle of the ground. But
like you build big but can move when the time comes.
Mate, he was a big man, but you know, we felt like we got out of jail, and we had a massive night that night. Then went to Pakistan, where we hadn't gone the whole tournament. We trained during the day, hard as always, under Bob Simpson. And, well, the Dew effect. If we'd only trained at night, what could that have done? Taking nothing away, obviously, from Aravinda De Silva. And yeah, lucky to have won another World Cup. But what that win did for Sri Lanka for world cricket was insane, wasn't it? And Sankar Gurusingha's, you know, a good mate. You know, he lives in Melbourne here, and they had their 20-year anniversary, obviously in 2016. And he rang me to MC the event. And I went, I want to MC that event, because I had Callie's shirt. We swapped it. And then I got called early to commentate a Perth Test match, and I was absolutely spewing because I'd love to have MC'd it. But I got the shirt to Callie, you know, because, you know, it's no point being with me. And they obviously had a great night. But I wanted to be there because I reckon I was their 4th best player that night anyway. So let's celebrate.
So, I mean, in keeping with a bit of a pattern here, you know, you're back for this World Cup, good tournament, but sure enough, injury strikes again shortly thereafter, and you're kind of missing another full Australian campaign as far as the international stuff's concerned. By that point, did you start having those feelings that maybe this was just your lot in life as a fast bowler, that you were never going to get that sustained crack, that you were always going to be kind of nearly there but not quite? I mean, I know that we talked to Jason Gillespie about this on our live show in Adelaide, that he had that feeling that maybe it was never going to work out for him, that he'd be one of these guys with sort of half a dozen test matches. At that exact moment, did you have those fears and reservations about your body?
Yeah, it's funny. I was pretty practical about it. Like I just went, I get injured, I rehab, and I come back. Yes, I made some mistakes coming back too early, but I never look back and go, yeah, did I not rehab enough? I think I did. But the thing is, we had, for guys like myself, I classify, Paul Rifle, Casper, Bick, and myself, all handy bowlers, but you're all fighting for one spot, in between McDermott and Warne.
Mm.
Do we play a second spinner? Then McGrath goes from our run-of-the-mill to a leader. Dizzy at his best, he's a spearhead as well. So it wasn't just getting your body right. It was, am I going to get a game? And then also, I got into some technical, mental issues as well, that really didn't help. So, I went that far that before the ACA, I went through the BIS and got myself back into uni. So I just was pretty practical, thinking at 26, if I don't make it back for Australia, at least I'll, have a business degree.
Mm.
So 3 days of that, and I'd worked out everyone who was taking my notes and all that at Deakin University. David Parkin helped me get in there. And then I'm back off to India. But I often think, and for everyone out there that's listening too, and a little bit what we're going at the moment, and I hope everyone's safe and going as well as possible, is you've got to get positive momentum going in your life. And I often think if I hadn't gone through that hard process of, getting myself into uni, having to do a bit of study to get myself back into that sort of stuff, and cricket wasn't, 100% of the pie. It was back to being 50% of the pie with study, family, and friends. I don't think I would have got back. But it was a tough process, but it gave me three and a half really good years for Australia at the end.
There's quite a pertinent question that's come in on the chat from Tamara. That were there particular people you relied on during that time to get you through it? When you were struggling, or when you were unsure of yourself through that period?
Yeah, very good question. Not only just about my career, but what we're going through at this stage as well here. But there wasn't really a lot. I used to pride myself on being self-motivated, self-regulated, and low maintenance in a coaching captaincy sense. So that's positive when everything's going well. But the problem with managing your own game is what happens when you drop 1%, 2%, 3%, and it becomes 10%, particularly when you're traveling all the time. In hindsight, I should have spoke to a few more people, or I wish we'd had a bowling coach that, even if it was a bit of part-time, that knew the game. And there was a couple of technical things when I missed out that I was practicing a bad habit. I thought I was improving, getting closer to stumps, but all I was doing was jumping in, then I'd jump out, and I was in the danger zone. So I'm getting warned by the umpires and that sort of stuff. So, mentors are important. But funny enough, a little bit later, James Sutherland was a guy I used to bounce off a bit. I really respected James when he played the one-dayers. Did a really good job for university as captain and coach. I used to live with Ian Harvey and Jeff Allardyce. So Joffa was at uni with James. And I felt like James told it how it was. So I'd often go in if he was at Carlton, then at Cricket Australia when he was just an accountant, and bounce some ideas off there. But really, I like to self-manage myself. So, but in a physical sense, a guy called Steve Lawson, who was at the Melbourne Footy Club, we got told that the shoulder would keep falling out. So I thought I needed to change my body shape. So I went from 75 kilos to 84. Anthony Stewart, who worked with the Hawks in the late 80s, but also was the sports psych that went to Dave Parkin in the 95 season, and said, you've got a very experienced group here. You need to, particularly the defence, let them start coaching the team. He really helped me out with goal setting. So, there was a couple of people there that really helped me get back. So by the time I got back, I really felt like I was ready to go.
Yeah, and when you get back, it's a really productive time for you as an Australian player. It sort of starts in a very famous series, doesn't it? Desert Storm, as they talk about when Sachin Tendulkar makes his 100 after the sandstorm or whatever it was in that group game, 145 or whatever it was, not out. Incredible performance that a lot of Indian fans still say is Tendulkar's greatest ever innings. It starts a nice little run with you and Sachin as far as the back and forth you have over 2 or 3 years where you're very strong competitors and often you end up on top in those as well.
Yeah, it was a bit of a whirlwind, really. I was actually dropped from the Victorian team early 97, in early 98, and I didn't see it coming. Still don't know why that happened. And then played the next game, got 5 for 10 for momentum was really going, and I felt like I was going really well. Got brought back in for the 3rd test over in India, 98, and I got crook on the plane. And couldn't play. So I'm just thinking, I haven't played Test cricket for 3 years, and this is my one opportunity. But I was absolutely cooked. But it was interesting with Jeff Marsh, who, when he first took over as coach in '96, really struggled with it. He wasn't Bob Simpson. He wasn't a great extroverted character. He trained hard, but he didn't offer a lot of insights. So there was a bit of connecting to be done. But early 98, with McGrath injured, I turned up to India. I don't know the expectations. And Swampy said a couple of the best words I've ever heard. He goes, "Flem, glad you're here. We really need your experience." So for me, he wasn't telling me how to bowl, but I'm going to play, and he expects me to play a big role. And that was interesting. It'd be interesting to talk to, Rifle, Casper, Bickle, that group as I was sort of lumping us in. It was interesting. I often bowled well when Glenn or McDermott weren't playing, and I got the first ball in the first over, and I felt like I was the main man. And that's what happened in that one-day series in India, and then in Sharjah. And I think I really thrived on that. And it's funny how it really, even when Glenn was playing, you should be thinking, well, I can take as many wickets. And I felt, it changed me a bit even with Merv, when I first debuted. Like being a kid at Springy South, I was always the gun. South Melbourne, even at 16, the gun. Played for Victoria, you're about 4th in line, really. And you fall into that mindset, whereas you should be actually expecting yourself, which I did probably in that last 3 years go, well, my goal for every test match and one-day game was to be the best bowler in the game. Now, if Vaughan, McDermott and Akram are at their best, I'm not going to be. But if they're not at their best, I can be the difference in the game. So that's what you learn from experience and that as well. But, yeah, Sharjah was amazing. I mean, I've never heard Sachin talk about it, but I'd like to know where he rates his peak as a batsman and where that Sharjah Indian series fits, because one-day cricket can get a bad rap, everybody, compared to Test cricket, but there's no bigger challenge when I was playing a one-day game in India or Sharjah or Pakistan, flat pitches, no swing, no bounce. You're only allowed 2 out for the 10 overs. So you've got to use and you're bowling to Tendulkar and Lara and these sort of guys. So you either adapt or survive, don't you?
Just get a brief interlude from, I reckon that might be there, and we might be okay again. If you've just joined the chat, jump on mute. If you've just jumped on here, I'm not quite sure who that is.
No, I mean, it's good that we haven't had any random porn hacking interruptions, because apparently that's quite a thing on Zoom as well. That Oh,
right. Share the screen and go from there.
Some intent. Debbie does.
Where is Warnie? Is Warnie coming? Jeff, in that Muriel, has it got him dropping that catch or what?
We're getting there.
He's hanging out with Bruce Springsteen, and Springsteen's holding the ball and Warren's not. So maybe that's a premonition. But look, we talk about Sachin quite a bit on the show. We check in with him once a week. And we might as well do this because it's
Sachin. It's your birthday. Happy birthday. Sachin. It's your birthday. Happy birthday. Sachin. Take it away, Lise.
Now, what Session does now that he's stopped playing cricket is tweet happy birthday to everybody who's ever played cricket when it comes up. Have you ever had a birthday message from Sachin Tendulkar? No.
No.
But he gave you one in person, though, didn't he?
Well, he did. The Sharjah final was April 24, and it was really unbelievable bowling to him, though, because they had a really great batting lineup. I don't even know what the batting averages were in that India Sharjah series. I can't remember them. Jadeja got 100 in the first one in India. I can't remember any of the other guns getting runs, but Sachin would be getting 130, 140. It was phenomenal. And then in the final, there was one lucky incident. I reckon a bowl, first or second over, a bowl to him. He got an inside edge that I reckon missed off stump by a millimetre, went for 4 down fine leg. And then after that, I don't think he mishit one for the whole time. But I remember halfway through, when he brought up his 100, just after, there was a big happy birthday, Sachin, and the Sharjah thing, big roar and all that sort of stuff. And then when he's about 130 and they're going to win and we're going to lose, it's just said happy birthday, Fleming, and like 20,000 people booing on your birthday going, yeah, no worries, thanks, guys.
I think we might have buried the lead there. The fact that you actually share a birthday with Sachin, given we spent so much time talking about Sachin and his birthday tweets, that the fact that you share, and it was on that Desert Storm week in question.
He's older.
Final, so
he's older though, Colo.
But that's why you can't get a message, because he's too busy on his birthday being wished happy birthday by everyone who he has wished happy birthday on the other 364 days of the year. How could he possibly remember to wish it to anyone else on the 24th of April? So you've been screwed in that sense, I'm sorry to say. Wayne Bravo's getting one. Darren Bravo's getting one. Damien Fleming, nothing. Not a sausage.
No, I'm getting donuts. A bit like what he did with the bat there, but it's sort of interesting, and it is great. Not playing a huge amount of Test match cricket, but by playing one day as in India, particularly with Tendulkar at your prime, the amount of social media presence around your birthday or around that tournament's amazing. So I think for the fans, they think that Tendulkar was, as good as it got. And, I was talking more about that mentality of when McGrath wasn't playing, you felt like you're going to step up. Bowling to Lara and Tendulkar, and Ponting, they do improve you, because you either get smashed and you go away, or you find solutions. And I found, particularly Tendulkar, you had to have 2 or 3 different plans, because, I did get him out a bit in that period, but we bounced him out a couple of times. So, beauty, we've got his weakness now. But then he started to put his weight backwards, and then he's hitting me and Casper for 4s and 6s square of the wicket. So then you needed to, the next game, cramping, taking wide of the crease. So it was always a constant, battle. But the thing is with Tendulkar, the longevity is what gets me about him. It was amazing.
The return to top flight cricket for you, it leads towards a Test recall. As I say, after 3.5 years, you finally get your opportunity. But that's back at Rawalpindi, coincidentally, where you took your hat trick all the way back at the start. You end up in the second Test match there, third Test, sorry, but the second you played watching Mark Taylor bat for 2 days in his famous unbeaten 334. But then you get back to Australia and you're in the team for another Ashes series, Ashes summer of 98, 99. And this is when you start to build some momentum, isn't it? You start to get an opportunity to play repeat Test matches. Runs at Brisbane, which we'll come back to, an unbeaten 71, then 9 for 91 match figures at Perth. I remember watching that at the time, and was that the best you bowled for Australia, do you reckon, that Test match at Perth when it was really swinging around in favourable conditions?
Yeah, definitely. I reckon the second innings, I think I had 4 for under 10, I think. And and once again, it was just one of those ones. I've got the first 4 wickets. So I'm thinking, geez, I might get 15 wickets here for the Test match. Once again, I just feel something in my quad, like it's just on, Tub, I'm going to have to go off here. And it's just sort of like, just as it's going to have, one of those Test matches. And then Diz got 5 the next day. But,
that's right.
Yeah, certainly. To be honest, it started a bit in the Commonwealth Games, in Malaysia, where we went over there and the ball swung a lot, no McGrath again. So you're, taking the first ball and everything like that. And even in Pakistan, which was pretty flat, if Tubby's getting 3-3-4 in 1998. You know, I didn't get the wickets, but felt like they were going out really well. And, you know, we had a good attack. You know, what Stuart McGill did in Pakistan and in that Ashes series was insane. You know, Warne's injured, you know, and he really dominated. But no, you know, just the feedback from, you know, Swampy Marsh, Tubby, and the selectors, you know, I just felt like I was going to play every game. And that just gives you so much confidence. I think everyone would talk about that.
And is that, you know, do you look at that series now with a particular satisfaction? Because, you know, that's the one where you play the first 4 test matches of that Ashes summer. You've got a proper solid season. It's not a bit interrupted or an injury coming in or whatever it might be. Like you've really been prominent through a home summer.
Yeah, definitely. And then to, you know, and win the Ashes, you know, we won it in Adelaide, you know, was amazing. Obviously the MCG test match was an absolute nightmare. Washed out day one. Once again, too much pressure on myself in the first innings. And funny, a little story there though, that was the first test match they actually put the pace of the ball on the fence. So McGrath and I, we got pulled in after the first innings and Jeff Marsh gave us a rocket gun. I've never seen you two bowl so badly, bowling short and blah, blah, blah. And me and Pigeon, without saying anything, we knew the same thing. We just wanted to bowl faster than each other. So you'd bowl the ball and see it's, you know, 132, yeah, because we're in the 130s. And you try and go that sort of stuff.
It couldn't have helped. It couldn't have helped that Steve Waugh bowled a ball in that test match. It was quicker than both of you, couldn't it? Do you remember that?
Yeah, but that would have been wrong, I would have thought, surely. Well, I did bowl a bounce. It was 140 and something, but it felt like the slowest ball I bowled. So I don't know how they worked that out. And McGrath's always talking, oh, because I'm taller and blah, blah. Yeah, no worries, Fidge. But, yeah, it was disappointing too. You know, we just felt we were invincible, but we were actually talking about winning the game that night. We didn't want it to go to day 5. And, you know, a few of us are talking about which pub we're going to, and we made a few calls about where we're going to go and celebrate. You know, I think I took a great catch from Ramplakash to start to do it, and Headley bowled beautifully. But it's still one, and it's one that obviously English fans, you know, talk about, you know, what in that time where they struggled against us. But, you know, that was a massive disappointment. Our heads weren't right at the right moment there.
But where you were right was in the 50-over format of the game, that 98-99 series when Shane Warne's captaining. Of course, Steve Waugh was injured at the back end of that summer. And you're very much a first-choice seamer in that team by now. Like, it's not as though you're in and out, you're fit, you bowl well in the Test series, and you're there. And I think because it was a World Cup year, there was a lot more emphasis on it that year. It felt like, I don't think the crowds were ever bigger than in 98-99 for those one-dayers around the country. So you're part of that success to the West Indies for the one-dayers that you played in, not the Test, but the one-dayers. You were there in that game at Georgetown, weren't you, where the pitch invasion at the end with Steve Waugh and absolute bedlam when the stumps got ripped out of the ground. Where were you for that moment, by the way? You weren't the non-striker, were you? No, that was someone else, wasn't it, at the very...
I was running on the ground. I wanted to...
If you want to see
some stumps...
You should, if anyone's not seen that, Google Georgetown, or YouTube, I should say, Georgetown one day of 99. It's absolute chaos with it was Warren was the non-striker, Declan Brennan telling us on the chat function here.
Very good.
Yeah.
Just going back a bit though, Colo, I was in a bit of trouble actually. I'd hurt my shoulder again in the Boxing Day test. Then I was made 12th man for Sydney, so I was a little bit disappointed, but I was also a little bit concerned. And then I think I played 4 of the one-dayers, and I was starting to get that electric shock in my shoulder when I was bowling balls, and I went, oh, I've had this feeling before. So without it actually falling out, I rested, and then I got that bad diagnosis was you've got a tear in your ligament.
Oh, really?
In there, so 2 months off. If it doesn't show signs of repair, we're going to have to reconstruct again. So I had 2 months, and ligaments aren't like muscles. You know, muscles will repair a lot quicker. So it was really truing and throwing. So I was under the pump, obviously. And then for the West Indies, they were pretty keen for me to be part of the test squad. So, you know, I was, you know, in the end, you know, I built quite a good rapport, funny enough, with Trevor Holmes, being injury prone, and, you know, he might have rated me, or the coach. But, you know, when he was chairman, I had a lot of, he'd ring me a lot. So I was often proactive, going, listen, I'm cooked here and that. Played some district cricket, played a couple of Shield games. We won a one-day final for Victoria. It was the only game I played, but it was sore. Then we went to the West Indies for the one-dayers, and you know, Warney dominated. But you know, I took a fair few wickets, but it was still, I was still getting a little bit of an electric shock when it was cold. But at least I was, you know, I was going to the World Cup, and it was funny, in cold conditions in England. By that time, it was fine. But back to yeah, so it was sort of like, yeah, it's sort of one of those ones. Yeah, it's an ugly time, because there was nothing you could do to quicken the recovery. And then I had this sort of noose around my neck, going, well, once it hits that 8-week period, if it hasn't repaired enough, there's no World Cup, and then 6-7 months out of my career at 29 is going to hurt. But yeah, Georgetown was insane. So, you know, when Tugger hit it, Warney's running, they're colliding, you know, they give him the 3, people are invading, the boys get back in, Steve and Warney, and at the old Georgetown, it's wooden, so they're all stomping down, and there's going to be a riot. We're just going, what are we going to do here? And there might have been, I can't remember who the match referee, Rubasan might have been.
Rubber Rao, yeah. Rubber Rao. Yeah.
And then he comes in and just goes, right, I'm calling it a win, but I'm not going to announce anything. Get in the bus, get going to the Pegasus, because that was the only hotel in Guyana, and we'll announce it. So we sheepishly get out, get into the bus, and we know when they announce the result, we hear this massive roar, and we obviously didn't go out in the Pegasus. So then we go to Barbados, and this is the one where one of my best mates, Brendan Julian, who got fined for fitting in too much with the locals on the youth tour. He was on that one with thing. He collided with Sherwin Campbell, like knocked him over, and then we went out and ran Sherwin out. So then that created another riot.
That's right.
And I'm walking off with Steve Waugh. They'll have footage of this. And I just see Steve's head go like that, and this big beer bottle just missed him by that much. And I was angry that they threw it at him, but also it was a full beer bottle. You don't waste a full beer bottle. But and that's where it led to that one where we basically got told, I think there was a lawsuit afterwards contradicting it, but you better go out and play the game. Otherwise, we can't control this crowd. So we actually went out and just played the game pretty meekly to play out a loss in the end. So we got a week's holiday after that, and we felt like
it. Chronologically, the next thing is the 1999 World Cup. I'm worried about even letting Adam talk about it, because he's done about 18 hours worth of podcast on like one game in the 1999 World Cup alone. So I was like, how do we steer through this in a relatively efficient fashion?
I think an experienced squad. The issues for me, we were based in Cardiff. Jeff Marsh, coach, Steve Waugh, captain. Game plan, different game plans. Steve McGrath was going to bowl first change. Myself and Adam Dale, the swingers opening. McGrath to bowl a bit like what Alan Donald did for South Africa. But the difference was, my understanding was AD Alan Donald struggled a bit with control with the white ball. So he felt better with a 10-over ball to bowl first change. Whereas McGrath, accurate McGrath, he had no problems with the new ball. He wanted it. So that didn't really work. Middle order, Lehman and Martin were probably battling it out. And it was the battle out of the all-rounders, wasn't it, with sort of Lee, Julian and Tom Moody. And but that was that first meeting was the infamous drinking ban called by Jeff Marsh. And I've never seen a more shattered dressing room than when those words went out. And guys are sort of staring up at the ceiling, and I still swear Darren Lehman started crying. I'll say that. He started crying when he heard Drinking Man. And Tom Moody, so experienced, I reckon he already read what Swampy was going to say, and he'd already gone, hey, hang on, and we're talking, and we're trying to get through things. And so I remember going to that World Cup, and it wasn't just the alcohol issue. There was just a few little grumblings, McGrath not opening, what's our best all-rounder? And really it took till we'd lost 2 and 1-1, against Scotland. We had a real chat up at Headingley and relaxed a bit on the drinking issue. McGrath went back to first change, and we settled on experience. So Moody and Rifle come in, and I don't think Moods or Pistol ripped it open, but they were both warriors, weren't they, for Australia? They were unbelievable, really. And then it was amazing how momentum can change. And, Michael Bevan talked to funny. Bevo was our most intense guy. He felt like we were too intense. We needed to lighten it up. And it was funny enough, myself and Adam Dale called Steve Waugh over for a beer, just saying our bowling plans are too basic. We need to, break it up a bit more and be more specific, which was big from Adam Dale because he got dropped and didn't play again, but he still committed. Me and him sort of made sure that we consolidated the bowling plan before each game. So once we left those Headingley dressing rooms, one, we had more ownership, and but with more ownership comes more responsibility, and we started to win well and build so much momentum, didn't we?
Yeah, there's so much to talk about with the '99 World Cup final, and it would completely derail, I think, the conversation if we spent too long talking about it, trying to have a broader conversation. But the legacy, I suppose, for you of that final over, that pressing fast forward 20 years, the amount of time that you spend actually getting asked about the final over, the consecutive clues to boundaries, the missed run out from the third ball, and then eventually the underarm to Adam Gilchrist. I mean, how often a year would you be asked to tell that story?
How many times do I get asked, or how many do I prompt myself into that story? That would be
include asking yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's the over that just keeps giving, and I'm lucky enough. My teammates at the time, particularly my Australian teammates in the dressing room, used to think that I used to talk a lot of crap. Well, now I get paid to talk a lot of crap, whether it's commentating or corporate speaking. So, I'd probably do 40 or 50 corporates a year. And it's funny enough, about 2 years ago, I started to cut up the footage of the whole game. And it's amazing how many little things you pick up. And and for people, a lot of corporate speaking, it's speaking to people who aren't as big in their cricket. But I just feel like if you can entertain someone that's not into cricket but enjoys it, but that last over is like a centerpiece. But for me, it was also going backwards a little bit. When I first started playing for Victoria at 18, I'd often bowl the first 10 overs in one-day games out. And then when I got to about 22, 23, I got entrusted to start bowling at the death. Because my philosophy was, if I'm the best death bowler for the state, I'm a chance to play for Australia. And in one of my first games, it was Alan Border's last game in South Africa, 1994. We didn't know it at the time, but AB gave me the last 2 overs. And I didn't bowl that good an over, but they needed 6. They only got 4, South Africa. And from that day, I sort of basically bowled the last over. So to get to the 99 World Cup, I've been doing it off and on for, 6-7 years. So I felt ready for it. Bowling plan, bowling wide Yorkers outside off stump to the Cluesinator, who smashed them everywhere. We come up with that the night before, which is not ideal. Give me 3 days to practice that in the nets. But when he hit that second one for forward, it's a tie. It's amazing. People say, what goes through your mind? And it's funny, my first thought was, I just have to bowl him out now. wasn't we're going to lose. Don't bowl a no ball. Don't bowl wide, because people have asked, "Oh, what did you think about? Bowl no ball? What?" I just had to bowl him out, and my first process was I want to come over the wicket. I didn't want to come around the wicket. It was the team plan, so I wanted to come over the wicket. And this is a tick to Steve Waugh's captaincy, and this is one of the beauties of Steve Waugh. He backed his players who backed themselves. So even if it slightly went against the original team plan, because you need evolving team plans in any sport, so straight away he goes, yeah, no problems. So that gives me a lot of confidence. And I often think if that was Cronje, Donald or Pollock to Cronje, who was a dictator type captain, would he allow that? No, this is the team plan. We stick to it. So in a lot of ways, Steve Waugh's leadership, got us through that last over and to win the final.
Flem, I'm mindful that got a fair bit of your career to go. We've been talking for a long time, so I might just simply say that Saeed Anwar changing his back grip, which the next ball you knock him over, is a fairly instrumental part of that World Cup final, and you end up being world champions. And we know what an important time that was for you as an Australian player after what happened in '96 and all the injuries and all the rest of it. You are a world champion, and you get that chance to play a lot of Test cricket after that because you're fit. So you go into the 99-2000 summer, having taken the first wicket in Australia-Zimbabwe Test relations, if you like. The first scalp is yours. You're there for the goal collision between Gillespie and Steve Waugh, of course, in Sri Lanka that year. And then you get into the Australian summer and you play the whole summer against Pakistan, 18 wickets in 3 tests where you never took fewer than 2 in an innings. I mean, Justin Langer's player of the series there, but it easily could have been you. And then we jump to Adelaide for the first test against India, and you pick up 5 for 30 in the second dig. Could have been 6 for 30. Could have been your second hat trick in Test cricket had Warne not put the catch down at first slip. I mean, there's the Warne part of this, which I'll get you to talk about. But generally speaking, having gone through so much, getting home to play a full summer with a shorter run-up alongside McGrath, as Australia is kind of trending towards a world record winning spell where you end up winning, I think it's 14 Test matches in a row or something ridiculous. I mean, 15. Your timing, final at 15, was it? At last, your timing was kind of perfect.
16,
sorry.
It's
any advances on 16? Do we hear an advance on 16? Have I got 17? 17 down the back.
Well done, Julian. It's interesting. You actually said the short run. So that made my career, that last 3.5 years. And it was a hot day in Brisbane, 97, 98 for the Bix. We got a very inexperienced attack. Queensland are flogging us. And I just thought, I'm going to have to bowl a lot of overs here. It's hot and it's humid. And I went to basically what was the Lancashire League run-up. And it just felt unreal. Even now, if I see some highlights of the video, it just looks too short to me, but it felt really good. I couldn't obviously get my run-up wrong or it wasn't going to come out right, but I just felt like I could bowl more overs. I didn't collapse on my back leg as much. I didn't, because I didn't jump as high, and I just felt like I got more bounce and swing. So, and my pace was more consistently quick, I reckon. And so for that summer was amazing. And I mean, I know we bagged Warney, but seriously, if Mark Walker bloody catch, it wouldn't have been 18 wickets against Pakistan. It would have been 26. He dropped so many. And then I had 1 over in the Perth Test match. Drop second ball. Warney drops 1. Then Slater. What's Slater doing at 4 slip? He drops 1. And it's all Azam Mahmood. And then the 5th ball, Steve Waugh drops 1 at Gully. Dropped 3 and 1 over.
That's right.
But it was a surreal summer. Also, felt like I was going to play. We had an amazing team, and we won 6. I think it's the only time that's happened. We won all 6 Test matches, and it was amazing. Wardy's drop. Geez, I'd love. The positive is I took 5 for 30. We were drinking beers by 12:30 Adelaide time. Back then, you could just celebrate whenever you wanted, singing the song, which was great. I'm on the honour board, 5 for 30 at the Adelaide Oval. But Colo and Jeff, how good would 6 for 29, including hat-trick, look? Because it'd take up 2 lines. And with the first one, you walk in that Adelaide Oval, you'd say, why is there 2 lines? Probably highlighted. The hat-trick would probably be highlighted. So,
But also giving you great material, much like the underarm at the underarm at and the Boo hat trick. It's giving you great after dinner speaking
let's
content
be
for
honest,
your corporate gigs.
Federer dropped it.
Yeah.
If I'd taken two,
well.
a few cricket people might know I'd taken two, but it's certainly with the last over and my own hat trick, Warning dropping, and he gets smashed, and he hates it too. Well, bad luck. Just take the catch, Warning. But highlight for me though, Steve Waugh, always entrepreneurial. First Test match of the new millennium. You know, we wore the old bone baggy greens. Won the 6 tests, which I said I don't think had been done. Well, it certainly hadn't been done before that. If it's been done since, massive celebrations. But in hindsight, that was pretty much the end of my test career. But just a golden summer, really.
Did it do your head in for a while after your career had finished that when you look back, you had that amazing game at Adelaide, then you don't play for over a year, and then you get that one test in India in 2001, the Laxman and Dravid series, and that's it. Like you go from going so well to it all being over in just a weirdly abrupt space of time.
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, but back to the other one, I was always pretty practical about it. I don't know if I was just used to getting injured. So you get injured, what do you do next? You rehab well, and you get yourself back. So, and then when I actually retired, you know, I've been thinking about coaching for 2 or 3 years. So, you know, and I still think we need a lot of support for retiring sports people. Because it's such a big vacuum from your life. Like I worked out, you know, but, you know, I got offered a job at the cricket academy straight away. So my retirement wasn't that a lot deep sadness because I was so excited about the future. And I reckon it helped me get out of the game because you were still coaching. But even then it was just, in the end, I look back now and I just think, I don't know what I actually did wrong. So after taking, you know, a lot of wickets that year, we went to New Zealand and I was starting to have really bad knee tendonitis. You know, took wickets in the 1 days, had to have 7 months off. There's no operation for tendonitis, or there might be these days, and you don't jab it because it weakens the tendons and you can snap them. 7 months off. Play a club game. Meanwhile, you know, they do rankings for your contract. So I'm still rated, you know, number 6 in Test cricket, number 8 in one-day cricket. Like I was always rated higher by the selectors in Test cricket than one-day cricket, which, you know, was a bit weird. And played for South Melbourne, only supposed to bowl 15 overs to prove my fitness. I bowled 23, walk out to bat, first ball, little medium pacer, kicks off a length, hits my finger, get a black feeling. I know straight away I've broken my finger. Keep batting. Okay, so I ring Trevor Hones, mate, I'm in trouble. This is going to be about 4 or 5 weeks. Come back from Victoria, bit of a stiff neck. Oh, what's going on here? We win the toss, bat. Geez, I can't keep my shoulder up here. I've slipped the disc in my neck, sleeping. So there's another 6 weeks. So that's the end of the first half of the summer. Luckily, get back, bowl pretty well for Victoria, play the 1 days. And really, I probably shouldn't have played that test match in India. I think Funky Miller should have played all 3 in hindsight. But even then, just with the planning, a bit like the Klusener plan, we played 2 early games in India and I didn't really go that well. And then I started to bowl some cutters at training and Steve Waugh goes, I reckon bowl your off cutter. You know, if we don't play funky, we'll use your off cutters while we're there. And I'm just thinking, just had 2 practice games. We should have that plan coming on tour. But in hindsight, I reckon Funky should have played those 3 test matches. But then we went to England and I felt pretty unlucky not to play test match cricket there in 2001. We had McGrath, Gillespie and Lee. I didn't expect to play, but Steve Waugh come up before the first test and he goes, you're 12th man because you're close. And then we won the first test and Brett had a disappointing first test match and I took 8 for against Somerset. Got a bit of a vibe from other selectors that I was going to play, so I was ready to play Lords, and then got told I was 12th man late again, and then that was it. And for some, I mean, Justin Langer's come out in the last few weeks, you know, we were both hurting on that tour, but we didn't talk to each other. But we finally spoke to each other in that Somerset game where he said he wanted to go home. But we used the same words, that we feel like we've had our heart ripped out, because we were both, good test players. We knew that we could perform at that level and we're no weaker, but there was no spot for us, unfortunately. But when Alfie got that go for that last test, I was really happy for him, because I got a feeling that he was getting that test and they were going to use someone at home that summer.
How disappointing was it when you get to the end? And yeah, I mean, 01, you look back at it, it's kind of, people still kind of can't quite believe that you didn't play in 01 in England, given the way you bowled there in 99 and, the way that you bowled traditionally, moving the ball away from the right-hander. It seems perfect to play test cricket in England, but it's that quirk in your analysis that you didn't play a test match there, even though you were still kind of in that frame. I know you're at the back of your career, but when you look back at it now, that must be a sort of a bit of a disappointment for you.
Oh, I'd love to have just played one Ashes series over there. I'd still take the two at home, but probably on that tour, it was the Butcher 170 at Headingley. One of the greatest test knocks of all time. I'd got Butch out a fair bit in the previous series. He was my teammate at South Melbourne back in 1993 when he come as the big quick. So he had the big charging Malcolm Marshall run up Butch, and then after his first ball, we all moved up about 3 yards at slips, but his batting looked a lot like Gower when he was playing for South. He didn't get big scores. But that was the one. Headingley swings, and we just didn't have someone that swung the ball, So it was really hard to watch too, because you just felt you could have had impact there. But a couple of Shield games in, got home. A selector said that we lost control of things over there, which gave me a little bit of made me feel a little bit better, but it was also, tough. And then the shoulder went again, and I tried to keep playing, and then that was pretty much it.
The way it ends, as far as that's the end of the international story, I suppose. But you still play first class cricket. You end up finishing up in Adelaide, which is kind of the transition to. We had a couple of questions on the chat about your brief time at South Australia, which led into you being the coach of the Australian Cricket Academy, which, I mean, it's kind of a lovely way to end your career in a way, isn't it? Sort of having that experience as a coach and then getting a pretty senior gig as a coach coming straight from the game. Usually guys have to serve a bit of an apprenticeship of sorts, and they saw that in you as a potential senior coach straight away.
Yeah, it's sort of weird. I mean, we had we had a horrible year in Victoria. I'd had another shoulder reconstruction. They were really in disarray. Hooksy took over as coach for Victoria. And I met with him, probably a couple of weeks before the meeting, and he didn't lead on that there was anything untoward. I was talking more up about the culture and certain people that we needed. If Hooksy had mentioned something then that maybe I wasn't in the best team, I was happy to move on. And then we got into the meeting, and then that was it. Moved on. It was really late, so it was really hard to find a state. The Bigs, I think deliberately left it up that late, so I was going to struggle. And then it was chats with WA and SA, and probably thought I was born in Western Australia and took wickets there. But with Greg Chappell as coach, Lehman, Blue, and Dizzy, three of my best mates, it was an easy decision in the end, and we loved it there. I mean, it was just so disappointing. The body just didn't get going because they had young guys like Tatey, Cozzy, and Ferg. Absolutely loved it. Got the end halfway through that year, and the shoulder wasn't right. I don't think the surgery was right. Instead of going a full reconstruction that we tried to repair, we should have gone a full reconstruction. But I mean, I was only 32. So I was and still another year on contract. And then I saw a fast bowling job up at the academy. So I rang Matthew Drain at Cricket Australia, who I knew from grade cricket. He was a bit funny to start. He goes, "There's something weird here." He goes, "What?" He goes, "I've just come out of a meeting for this position. Your name's come up." And I said, "No, I haven't heard anything. I just want to be proactive." At that stage, I wanted to still play because the academy was mainly in the winter. And then I still wanted to play in the summer. But in my mind, I was thinking of going to the Redbacks. Maybe I captain the second 11 and just play the 10 one-days. Because, you know, we had obviously Dizzy, but we had Tatey, Rofi, Clears, Ryan Harris, who was more a medium far. You know, we had some good young players there. And then I come back and you can have the job, but you've got to quit. But as I said, when I retired, because I thought, well, I'm going to coach anyway. Why waste another day? And so, you know, it wasn't a sad time. It was, I was actually invigorated to go into another career.
It's time for a very important part of the show that I know people have been waiting for.
I'm a stat man. I'm the stat man.
Now, we like to do on the show, sometimes, not every week, a little bit called the Stat Man, where we have a slightly deeper dive of the numbers. Now, I know we've been going very long, so I'm going to keep this very short. But what I want to talk to you about, Damien, is the day you made 71 at the Gabba. And I know you'll be very reluctant to discuss it. I know you don't like to go on about it. But I found out today, and I don't know if you're aware, but the great man, Rob Moody, has put up an hour plus of a ball-by-ball compilation of your entire inning, all of it, on YouTube. But were you aware that this existed?
Oh, he's a bloody legend, Rob, isn't he? Like, he gets obscure stuff. I don't think we need the whole innings.
No, it's all there. And I watched the entire thing from start to finish this afternoon. And I just wanted to let people know a little bit of what went on in that inning. So, I mean, I like particularly the fact that you started off with a very extravagant forward defence, just really saying, I'm here for the long haul. Then there's a short ball that goes off the badge of your helmet for 4-leg buys. And then there's an edge through slips for 4. And at that point, you must have been thinking, I'm on here today. Things are looking really
but, sorry.
No, go on.
Yep. So what was that? 98, 99. Yeah, come in for that one. Obviously, a pretty flat pitch. I just remember you started like that, but then I started to get a couple of pull shots going. And I remember I'm good mates with Darren Goff. And Goffy goes, what's going on, Flip? You're nailing him. I go, I don't know. I'm just going for it. And just started to keep hitting 4s. And then Alan Mullally bowled a really high one. And I went Ian Chappell-like. You know how he went right over the top hook shot?
Yeah.
And then he just said, Flem, you're the wrong colour to be playing these sort of shots. And it was just a celebration. And then it got deeper. And then I start thinking 100. And that's when McGrath comes out, and we know McGrath gets all these accolades, getting Steve Ward to 200, Michael Hussey to 100. And I remember just saying, mate, just give me 20 minutes. 20 minutes is all. And he goes, no worries, mate. And then he played a slog sweep and got bowled by Robert Croft. And we're walking off. I'm raising my bat, and I'm thinking, do I say something to McGrath? And then I think to myself, I'm an irresponsible tail ender too. The chances of me letting him down at some stage are equally significant, aren't they? But boy, I will say something. I was absolutely stuffed after that. We went and bowled, and I was cooked.
Yeah. The Alan Mullally, the pull shot, I mean, that comes quite a long way into the innings. But like, what I particularly enjoyed was the calypso style of the cover drives. Now, and Ian Chappell picks up on this on the commentary. He goes, I don't know what's going on with Damien Fleming, but you'll often see a player have the leg in the air when they play the pull shot, not so much the cover drive. You're backing away and then playing through cover with your front leg, your knees up about level with your jawbone by the time you're trying to play the ball. You hit some of them, you miss some of them. But I was curious about the one-footed approach to just about every shot you tried to play in that inning.
My teammates got a lot of joy out of my batting. I'm not gonna lie to you. Sometimes it was very brief. Talking about Ian Chappell, he was commentating with Sonny Gavaskar. I reckon I made 12 against India, probably the next year. And in those 10 balls, they compared me to Vishwanath, Worrell, and Gordon Greenwich with a pull shot.
Well,
so I wasn't in for a long time. I was in there for a good time. But with the one leg swivel, what it did, as you could see, I could go either way. So I could open up the face and go through square on the offside, or do the Greenwich through square leg.
Yep.
Kids, practice it.
There's even a point where you try to play a late cut on one foot as well. You get the front leg up also just to try to guide one away through the slip cord. And once they've taken all the slips out.
Once again, kids, practice that one.
So what I found interesting in this innings was that you took your time for a while at the start. But this was only your 6th Test innings, I think, where you'd actually had to bat. You at one point, I think when you're on 26, you have 71 career runs in Test cricket at that point.
Ooh.
Then you go on to make 71 in the day. So you make your entire career's worth of runs to that point in this one inning. And it's your highest first-class innings. You'll never come back to make a higher score than that. You're on 29 when Stuart MacGill comes out to bat. That's when Ian Healy's got out. You're not thinking at that point 70 with Stuart MacGill walking out to join you. But he made 20 and batted for a while.
I love batting with McGilla. He reminded me a lot of ex-South Australian quick Shane George. And on that 1999 youth tour, you meet a batsman, you go, oh, he's bowling quick, he's spinning it, blah, blah, blah. Before you could say a word to Georgie, he'd go, are they bowling fast? Are they bowling fast? Are they bowling bounces? If they're bowling fast bounces, I'm not hanging around. McGilla was a bit like that. And if you think I'm innovative, he was unbelievably innovative. But I think he got a 40 later on that series, didn't he, at the G with Steve Waugh? Now, McGilla out there, if I'm on 29, if I could get into the 40s, I'd be pretty happy with that. But what had happened in that series and in Pakistan, because there was no warning, they wanted me batting number 8. Which was just one too high. I didn't like batting 8 because if you bowled, lost a couple of wickets, you think about batting. I like number 9 or 10. So we worked a lot on the actual batting at that stage, which great rewards for one innings at least.
There are a couple of golden bits of commentary from this stint that I watched today. You've got Richie Beno saying, the average is all right for a number 9, 10, 11 occasionally. You've got Bill Laurie saying, we're going shortly to Sandown, race 5, the Eclipse Stakes. and then you've got Ian Chappell. So at the point that MacGill gets out, you're on 38 at that point, and you start hitting a couple of boundaries. Ian Chappell says, I think Damien Fleming has decided that if he's going to get a Test 50, this is his best chance, and he's going to do it quickly. And then after you play the 1 foot late cut, this is my favourite bit of the day. Chappell says, I saw Damien Fleming sitting in the dressing room area reading a book during the day. Must have been a book about batting. Well, that's the closest Ian Chappell gets to a joke. But
I thought chaps might say a Victor Trump biography or something like that. I would have thought there was a bit more in it there. Yeah, I still can't explain it. And good on the late, great Tony Gregg too. At lunchtime the next day, he does a promo with me because I had no stickers on the back.
I noticed that. You're batting in a clean skin. Absolute waste of an opportunity.
So Tony just goes, get this man a sponsor. So I signed Gray Nichols, Smythe, good on you. Signed with them. Next Test innings at Perth, second ball done. They got their money's worth there. But talk about batting though, Colo. You skipped over that Zimbabwe tour in 1999. Who's got the 3rd highest score in the history of Test cricket of Australian Zimbabwe Test matches in Zimbabwe? Who's got the 3rd highest Australian score ever?
65 by B.W. Fleming.
Not Ponting, no Punter, no Blue, no Slater, no Langer, Fleming.
You're also
and Steve Waugh cost me 100.
You're looking at someone who's played 100% of the Test matches that Australia's played in Zimbabwe. Is that the Southern Cross Trophy, the coveted trophy you played for, has been contested twice over 3 Test matches of it. Once in Australia in 2003, and they haven't played for it since.
I didn't think about that. And I know it's more about the social economic situation over there, and it's been horrible for years. Harare Cricket Ground was a lovely ground, ground, beautiful pitch, beautiful outfield, great crowds, and a pub at Fine League. Dressing
what do
room.
they call it again?
Hey,
It's called Cricketers. I think
It's an
from memory,
Irish.
the pub down there.
It's an Irish pub,
Yeah.
mate. How perfect
There's
is
one
that?
everywhere.
So have a quick shower and you're having a pint within 5 minutes. Such a shame.
You've
That's why I
got,
got. That's why I got
you got on the wall
65.
there all of the Andy Flower memorabilia still on the wall there, even though he's not been in Zimbabwe for many years. It's a really, I love Zimbabwe. Great place to tour. Flem, before we let you go, because we have been going a long time, we might take a couple of questions. But how much fun is your life now? I mean, just thinking when we were going around England last year, as far as the work you get to do in the media. We had the great pleasure of calling the World Cup final together last year for SEN.
Awesome.
The Channel 7 work that you get to do around the summer, it all kind of took off really with the Big Bash with Channel 10 for those few years when you were one of the pioneers, I suppose, of T20 coverage on free-to-air television in Australia. But now you get to really not do as you please. That's the wrong way of framing it, but get to do some really wonderful things around the year on the commentary front, which seems to be going in leaps and bounds in recent times.
Yeah, Colo, very lucky. How good was it, that World Cup final, getting to call that? I mean, they're the moments, because you start as a fan, you grow up watching cricket, and no doubt everyone here would have been wanting to play for Australia or their country, and lucky enough to do that. But then you retire, you go into coaching, so that certainly helps your commentary, having a coaching background. Probably the 10 years at Fox in between and ABC really helped, ABC Radio and Fox. With Fox, we were doing a lot of 50 over domestic cricket, and geez, it was good fun, you know what I mean? But you got your hours up. So probably by the time, Channel 10 took it, we're really ready to have fun. And for me, though, it's a great opportunity to catch up with your teammates. And, I remember having a tweet from someone after the first year on Channel 10 after the final. And the guy said, Flem, thanks for the commentary. Really felt like we were in the dressing room with you guys. And I think that's what really in the teams I'm involved, we want everyone coming with us. We don't want to be elitist. We certainly want to have fun. But also you want to explain, as quickly as possible. And also it's different commentary styles, and lucky enough, 7 now being able to do Test cricket and Bash, for the Big Bash, and Ponting's probably taken it to a level no one else has, but it's a lot about predicting or quickly reacting to what's happened. With Test match cricket, it's awesome. You can do more analysis. You can, use the different tools that you've got. So, there is different, you certainly set up for a Test match commentary day, different than a Big Bash match. And a lot of the preparation used as a cricketer, I still have, at least for every commentary day that I need to go through to make sure, I'm commentating at my best. And that's the challenge. And in the end, I mean, you guys do it as well. You want to live in the moment, but I can't live in the moment unless I've done the preparation. We have some great statisticians, but I always like to try and have one that has the statistician going, oh, wouldn't have thought about that. I think it's moving commentary-wise to more trends, crick viz, that sort of stuff. Don't tell us what happened, predict why and how that happened, or why that happened. Batting averages and all that sort of stuff. I think we're certainly going into more matchups and analysis, which excites me, which is right up my alley.
Flem, thanks for being outstandingly supportive of Jeff and I over the years, and very generous by spending a couple of hours with us here today. Jeff, I'm not sure what your perspective on this is, but it would be nice to take a couple of questions if we can, as far as the logistics of this. It might be that we use the chat function and then bring people onto screen, Jeff. Would that be about the right way to do it?
If you've got a question, chuck it in the chat. If Jono can work out how to bring you up, then we'll do our best to do that. But maybe we'll just get reading one to get you going. I'm curious about your answer to this as well. What's your worst variation on the corridor of uncertainty? You've come up with a lot, but what's the one that's really stretching the genre?
I think corridor of uncertainty.
The original's the worst in this case.
It's so funny. I was having a beer, name dropping, with Sir Richard Hadley at Beach Cricket all those years ago. And I can't remember why he didn't like the term corridor of uncertainty, which is Jeff Boycott's term, which I love now. When Boyks uses it, I'll get tweets from people going, hey, Boyks is stealing your lines. The corridor uncertainty. So I went on ABC radio the next day and I said, I want to ban the corridor of uncertainty. Let's get some alternatives. So it was really the ABC listeners that shot them out, and I stole them. But the couple of ones I do love, though, I love you bowled into the strip of Vindaloo. You're not sure if there's any runs in it or not. Okay.
Yeah. Why don't we see if we can get Elise? We'll see if we can get Elise on screen. I don't know how we do that. But
we've got one from Elise and one from Robin. So why don't we try and get Elise and Robin up? So in order to do that, we've got to find them on the screen, Jeff. If you get there first.
We'll have a race.
Wow, that's
awesome. Elise, where are you? Let's find you.
There we go. Elise.
There you are. Hello, Elise.
Hello, good evening, gentlemen.
Yes, Elise, how are you?
Good, thank you. My question is around... Oh, sorry, can I go ahead?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. My question's around being a fast bowler, getting through a 5-day test match in terms of recovering between innings, managing your body over, the workload over several days. How do fast bowlers manage that?
Yeah, it's a good question, that. And no doubt you get better through the series because you're starting to attune to that sort of workload, because there's not many sports in the world that would send an athlete out day 2 after bowling 30 overs on first day, is there? So it's a real peculiarity of cricket. And I suppose in our day, we bowled a lot more at training as well, which I think prepared us. And for the recovery, I mean, even from the late 80s on, we were starting to stretch a lot more. We drank a lot more beers than they did these days. That was part of the recovery. And then the ice baths come in, the mid-90s. But back then, it was like pure ice. And then we've heard in the last couple of years, no, that's too cold. It's actually supposed to be cold water with a bit of ice. So we went through that sheer hell for about 3 or 4 years in my last 3 or 4 years there. And I suppose our era was more about running and workload, whereas these days they don't do as much, aerobic running. It's more anaerobic running. But for me, it's still, you still got to get enough bowling to attune yourself for bowling. So I reckon in pre-season, you've got to do as much as possible and bowl on multiple days and, to get yourself right. But yeah, it didn't matter how fit your preparation was right. The day after bowling 25, 30 overs, you're still always sore.
Thank you, Elise. I'm going to bring Robin in. Yep.
Oh, hi. It's not Robin of Sweden here. You'll be sorry to hear that. I find the introduction of so many women in commentary teams has made a difference to my listening. I'm just wondering if it's made a difference to the commentary box.
Yeah, it certainly has. I mean, in the Fox Sports days, the girls were mainly boundary riders. But even that was seen as innovative 15 years ago. But, a lot of the girls are in the commentary box. Lisa Stalaker and Mel, they're really good cricketers themselves. So I reckon their insights are everywhere as important as ours. And then on 7, we've got Alison Mitchell, who's phenomenal. Who started, work experience, BBC. But I find her a really good all-rounder, TV and radio, because there's different skills. We've gone on Channel 7 back to a pure ball-by-ball as opposed to 3X players. So she's fitted that role really well. And I think we've got 3 pretty extreme different people in that ball-by-ball role. Tim Lane, James Brayshaw, Alison Mitchell. You couldn't say that their 3 personalities are the same. And but it makes it interesting as a commentator too. Like if you do the first stint with Tim, second stint with James, third with Alison, it actually invigorates it a bit for yourself, because they're going to all come with different types of questions and thoughts. So it's certainly not going to, the balance between female and male commentators is certainly not going to go down, I wouldn't have thought. And I think women's cricket, the standalone women's cricket has been phenomenal. Like the ratings on Channel 7 were outstanding. So getting through current events, I think it's just going to thrive more and more.
Flemo, I'm going to make a unilateral decision to pick. I'm going to pick Tim for the next one, because it's a question that I was going to ask earlier about Flemo. And the reason I want to raise it, Flem, is that we talked about the start of your career going up the pyramid. You came down the pyramid and did some exceptional work in the subbies for Noble Park. I've got two Tims on the screen. I'm going to unmute both of you. Whoever it is that asked the question, jump in and I'll unmute the other one. How's that sound?
G'day, Flemo. Thanks, Kylo. Your last year I think it was last year of your competitive cricket, Flemo, was at Noble Park. You got 100 in the group final at, I think that was at Caulfield Park, and you had 4 for 4 at the end of the first day of the main final, and rolled, I think, Malvern for about 50 odd. How was that experience of just playing park cricket and playing with blokes, but also sharing your experience with a couple of some really good cricketers? And I think one got to sort of second 11 cricket. That's Ash Pereira.
Ash Pereira, yeah.
Yeah, you shared sharing that expertise and sharing that with some outstanding young blokes, but also just being involved. But I think that was your only 100 that you ever made in cricket. I think that's what I remember. My brother might have been playing in that game with you. So I think we were pretty excited that day.
Oh, sorry, I beeped out there. Who was playing with me?
My brother Andrew.
O'Meara.
Owie.
Owie. Yeah, what a legend, Owie. Owie got a couple of hundreds that year.
Yeah, they're his last ones.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I actually did get a couple of hundreds for South Melbourne in district cricket. So, I was expecting to get runs, but not so much in the semi, and we had to bowl the next day. But, that final, it was such a great way to finish your career. I only come back to play to win a club final. Talked about success for Australia, Victoria. For South Melbourne, we never won anything, and it really just felt like one thing in my career that hadn't been ticked off. And then I felt like with media commitments, I couldn't play district cricket because I was considering coaching South Melbourne and playing. And then when I decided to play subbies, obviously there's some good inducements out there, but I played football at Noble Park. The president, Craig Ortland, was my cousin-in-law. So it was just great to go to somewhere where, and the footy and cricket clubs are really close. But amazing final against Melbourne, the favourites. They might have been undefeated. Bowled out for 156, an hour to bowl, and a little bit of bounce in the track. A couple of their boys already showered to go out. We get 1 wicket. There's 1 night watchman, 2 night watchmen, 3 night watchmen, and we had them 9 for 16 that night. So it just says in any game, in any sport, you never know what's going to happen. So Big Ash got 5 for, I think. And then I saw him close enough to, I sent him up to Canberra the next year to play second 11s and to see what he could do there. But, to win a final in your last year of cricket was just amazing. Great moments. And, yeah, I think it's time for a reunion, actually.
Ash was the best player I played against the kid, I reckon. Growing up in the local comps around there, he was, and your brother Andrew I played against plenty as well, Tim. But Ash was the star. And I'm surprised he didn't go on to play first class cricket. We've probably got time for one more question. I'm just going to try and, Jeff, if you want to have a quick scan with me here perhaps as well.
We could get the fake Michael Neil Smith, who I know is not Michael Neil Smith. Let's bring camera out. Here we go. Are you coming through?
Oh my God.
Wow, it's like awesome. The Matrix or some shit. What's happening there?
Hi guys.
Hi folks, how you doing?
Very good.
All the way from Marrickville, Sydney. Winnie looks lovely, Adam, but really you've got to get onto the Swans. Forget about this Hawthorn business. Flem,
Bloods.
just wanted to know, I'm all about, you know, that moment and that time, because you hear a lot about careers, but you know that they're like you've said, thwarted by injury, test selection, you know, dropped, picked up, all that stuff. I want to know sort of the guts of it. When were you happiest? When did you feel like I really feel settled here as a player? Was there a time, was it in grade, was it in state, was it playing for Australia? I harken back to the previous, Wade said, you know, for years I felt anxious, I didn't feel part of the squad. I'm enjoying my cricket now. Was there a time for you?
Wow, that's a really good question. Because off the top of my head, you know what happens when you retire is I just remembered I didn't have that game I thought I was going to have. Because you're always planning to have the best game you've ever had. And then you retire. And it sort of hits me going, I just didn't ever have that game that I thought I would. But is that what it's all about? And I think it is. I think it is. You're constantly trying to get better and strive for perfection, even though deep down you know you're not going to have perfection. You know, and we talked about Colo, you know, before when the Test match I had 5 in the first innings and the first 4 wickets in the second. You know, deep down I thought, yeah, I could have bowled better than that. But it was actually one of the games Tubby's, you know, when Tubby got 334 and he declared, he obviously didn't talk to us bowlers because we would have said, keep batting. There's no result in this Test match. We don't want to bowl, right? Because I had none for 100 all over it. And I was wrong because I got 1 for 100. But I thought I bowled as well in that game as I bowled in any throughout my career. But it was probably, to answer your question, it was probably that beautiful short run from India 98 up until probably, you know, the Ashes 2001, which had some frustrations because I thought I should have played. And I felt like I was part of the best team or the best squad. And probably when they brought in the contract system, that was the first time you sort of got feedback. So it was interesting. In the 3 or 4 years I had contracts, you know, 1 year I was rated the 5th best player in Australia, which is hard to believe really, but it just happened to fit when, you know, Punt was half out of the Test team, Gilly wasn't in the one dayers. So I always sort of had good feedbacks from my contract. So I'd have to say that. But as for actual joy, I don't think anything ever beats your first game and everything. You know, at Springvale South, I would have given my right arm at 12 if you said I could have been a Turf 1 player. So when I got picked for Turf 1, it was just like, oh my God, it doesn't get better than this. South Melbourne ones, Victoria, you know, I'm rooming with Merv. You know, first time for Australia, it was a whirlwind sort of thing. So I don't know if it, and generally I had good first games besides Australian first one day. So, but that last question from Owi's brother, to finish on a note of winning a final when you bowled out for 150, you got the opposition 9 for 22. But for me, it hasn't finished because the game's giving for me. You know, I'm a fan. I get to commentate. I love commentating. If I wasn't commentating, I'd be watching. I read heaps of cricket books. My kids all play, so I coach them. So yeah, cricket's been unbelievable, and really started from the inspiration of watching Dennis Lilly, really. So probably haven't quite answered it, but yeah, it's been an amazing experience.
No, Flem, that's a really lovely place to leave it. I think the idea of you going from local cricket back to local cricket and still giving plenty back to the game, both as a commentator and to your kids, to your coaching as well. I'm going to try something here. I'm going to unmute everyone so we can all clap and thank Damien Fleming. Let's give us a crack.
Everybody.
Thanks, man.
Reading next time. We're all reading next time.
I'm going to mute everyone again. Right, I've muted everyone back again, just because in the interest of trying to say goodbye to Flemo. But yes, Flemo, thanks again for coming and doing that, and thanks to everyone. I mean, Jeff, I'm sure you'll add to this, but The response we've had during this lockdown to the final word's been absolutely unbelievable. It's just made, like, you know, we talk about this a lot on the show, but you are our loyal patrons, and there's really no way we could do the show through lockdown and not have to get real jobs if not for the fact that the podcast has been so good to Jeff and I, and that really boils down to the support we've received from people on this chat window. So thank you so enormously for letting us keep doing what we do.
Everybody here has made it possible. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to find the time to do it. So it's been amazing. We're going to keep trying to produce good shows for you and talk to interesting people and do what we can. So if you've joined up recently, stay on for the ride. And if you joined up a while ago, we love you with all of our heart.
We really do. And thanks to all those who had a backdrop as well. We haven't missed you, even though we've not been in gallery mode. So I saw Elia there with Dean Jones. I saw, of course, before we had the Neil Smith household there as well with shots from the SCG. We had an MCG. I think Mezzy Jez had the MCG or possibly Perth Stadium. Jessica Curry there with Andy Bickle. So all really well thought out. Of course, Jeff there with Warnie's mural. And thanks to everyone for buying a ticket or alternatively jumping on Patreon. It's been brilliant. Once again, Flemo, you've been wonderful to Jeff and I. It's great to work with you. It's great to spend time with you outside of work as well. Thanks for being a part of the final word.
Thanks, everybody. Keep safe.
And we'll all speak to you again. In terms of the final word, we'll talk to you next. We've got the encore edition of our Ian Chappell episode coming out tomorrow night. Then Jeff and I will be back with Megan Shute, Australian and South Australian fast bowler. We're talking to her on Monday. And then we've got the next episode of Calling the Shots, which includes Jonathan Agnew, Vic Marks, and Peter Baxter coming out the following Friday. So lots of stuff on the stream the next couple of weeks. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. I hope you enjoy it. And it's been an absolute thrill doing this today. So, yeah, thanks for being part of it. Jeff, any final words?
Any final words? I will only say it's been really nice chatting to everyone on the messages, on the posts on the page, and all the rest of it. So keep it going. You're keeping our spirits up, and hopefully we're able to do the same for you from time to time. So we'll catch you on the internet where we all live.
Good night. See everyone.